Johnny, I've been thinking a lot about when we first got together in '67 and how I was so excited about you being the town legend and being in the Sapiens.
Oh,
and,
go on.
and how
More.
and I know, and you were just so sexy, and you had these fabulous clothes,
Do
really,
tell.
really, and you had money, and I was like, the queen walking around with you. I was a Sapiens chick, and then I don't know, all of a sudden you just quit the band. I was like, why would you give that up? You were like a superstar. Why in the world would you just give that up?
Well, it was the 60s, and it was this whole new thing happening. And as much as I loved playing in the band and making all the money and having all the adulation, I felt I was missing out. Because I had to work on weekends. I couldn't party. I had a job. I had to play. And at that time, it was '67, and Life magazine had a thing about the Summer of Love in Haight-Ashbury. And I had been, attracted to the Village years before and the scene down there. And it seemed like now that was being transferred to the West Coast, and man, I wanted to be a part of that. So I quit the band and headed out west to see what was happening. I love checking out things, and that's where I went.
Yep, and you would disappear for weeks at a time, and no telephone call, nothing. I know it was difficult for you to call me, but you would just disappear. And then you would come back, and it's like, why wasn't I happy to see you? I hadn't seen you in like 5 weeks or something. The one time, oh my gosh, that one time, I was so mad at you because it was so difficult for me to find time where I could see you, because my parents were so strict, and I was forbidden to see you, and I was always grounded. And so I made those plans. You were in town. It was one of the rare times you were in town. And I made plans to stay overnight at Anita's, and you were supposed to meet me there on Saturday. And I'm waiting and waiting, where's Johnny? And as time went on, I was crying, and Anita felt so bad for me. Anyway, we went to bed. Next morning, we wake up, and you showed up around noon or something like that. And I was furious. I'm furious, and I'm crying, and it's like, where were you, blah, blah, blah. And you go, but it's Hendrix, man. Oh my gosh, I saw this dude. It's like this black dude. You wouldn't believe what he does with the guitar. He plays behind his neck. And he blah, 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 all this and that. And you're going on and on and on. And I'm going, I don't care about Hendrix. I've been waiting for you. I made all these plans to see you. And you're just going, but it's Hendrix, man. Like, I'm supposed to understand that? And I'm supposed to care? Oh my gosh, you were the worst boyfriend.
Well.
Yeah, well.
But you don't understand.
No, I didn't understand.
It was like Hendrix, man. I was in the city, and I tried to make it back, but the whole thing was, the 60s was happening, and I really bought into this Aquarian age thing, and the whole hippie ethos and everything. I didn't believe in money anymore or material goods. I wanted to, commit to this whole Aquarian idea. And that's when my appearance went downhill and my money went down. I just bought into that whole thing.
And let me tell you something, sweetheart. There's no way I would have wanted to have anything to do with you when you got into that hippie
But
phase.
I had you hooked.
You did. I was hooked already. I was like, no, I can't stand it.
Couldn't
And I
escape.
wanted so badly to just get away from you, and I just couldn't. You'd give me that look, that that innocent, cute little. I would melt like in a big puddle. But and then I couldn't understand how you could have nothing but the clothes on your back. You had no money, nothing, and you're hitchhiking. All back and forth to Haight-Ashbury. And well, first of all, I was so jealous because you were having all these adventures that I'd never be able to have. But I just couldn't understand why you wouldn't want to be with me. It was like what's so great about Frisco that you just can't stay away. You have to keep coming back and forth.
Well, when you're a teenager, you want to see the world. I mean, you want to break away from your past. You want to make it on your own. Like in Australia, they have the walkabout or whatever. That's the deal. And you want to have a breakaway. And I had hitchhiked down to Florida actually first, and became friends with some guys who were from San Francisco, and they told me where to go, what to do, blah blah blah. And then I hitched all the way, was it Route 10 and up to Frisco. I got there, maybe had $3 or $4 in my pocket, didn't know a soul, and prospered. I mean, it was a scene back there. It was 1 million kids there. Everybody's hanging out, and everybody cooperated with each other, you know, and kind of looked out for each other. And if someone had a crash pad, everybody could stay there. If someone got some kind of money or some kind of food, everybody joined in. It was kind of like a commune that wasn't really a commune. I mean, organized, but everybody looked out for each other. And there was music and a lot of dope, and you could spend your time profitably pursuing those endeavors. And it was back then too. I mean, there was like a free clinic, and there was a lot of places that would feed the kids and whatnot. And plus, there's a lot of things to check out. I mean, the Fillmore and the Avalon Ballroom and the Matrix and was it Wonderland. All the music groups were there, and you can hitch all the way up to Marin County and check out what's going up there. I mean, it's just a wonderful scene. It was really nice. But the thing was, you always thought the place that was happening was where you weren't.
Yeah.
So if you got out to San Francisco and you're digging the scene there, you always figure, man, I think it's happening back in New York, down the Village. So you hitchhike back to New York, and you spend some months there, and you say, man, the scene's really back on the West Coast. Yeah, back there. It was like you're always chasing where it's at. You know, you never were where it's at in your mind. You always, grass is always greener.
Yeah, but you got to see some really cool groups before they were big.
I did. I certainly did. I could name them off, but all the San Francisco Sound, all those groups, from Janice and Jefferson Airplane, and even Santana was starting up there, and there was just so many. And the shows were like $3. And
Wow.
I didn't have a job, and you could just beg for money on the street, get a few bucks.
Oh my gosh.
And you have $3, you get in there, and they have like 3 or 4 artists playing that night. It wasn't just one, and it was like a ballroom kind of thing. There was no seating really, and it was just a wonderful scene. Bill Graham came out and yelled at me because I was panhandling outside his establishment. Well, anyway.
Well, it just was not a good time for me because you were supposed to be with me.
Well, you know.
Yeah. And then, you know, that was 67. And then when it got to be 68, of course, that was the summer of love. And, you know, I say all the time, oh my gosh, it was the best time to be alive. It was the best time to be a kid in 68, you know, with all the music and the clothes. I mean, it was just...
The world was changing.
It was.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you think about it, the other side of the coin was the social turmoil at the time. I mean, what was going on was, I mean, there was so much. I mean, we had segregation, you had the Vietnam War, MLK, Robert Kennedy, that assassinated. I mean, it was just the protests and everything. It was...
The Democratic National Convention, don't forget that.
That's right. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Vietnam War was a big deal. That was always in the back of everyone's mind, you know, and I worried about you because you were turning 18, and I knew that you would have to do whatever you have to do, go down to Whitehall Street, and what's that called? What did they do when you...
Well, the deal was when I turned 18, everybody had to register for the draft. So I registered for the draft. And what happens is, one of these times I'm hitchhiking back from San Francisco to New York. I made it all the way over to Albany when I got stopped on the New York State Thruway for hitchhiking. The state trooper goes through my meager possessions and finds some pot. Traveling pot, because it's cold in the winter.
Right.
Route 80 through the Rockies, you know. And they back then it was very strict with the drug laws. Now it's legal, but back then the few joints I had constituted a felony possession.
gosh.
The next thing I know, I'm in jail, and I'm in jail for like 3 or 4 weeks because I can't go bail. And finally go to the judge, and the judge says, no big deal. I'll give you a youthful offender. And I'm out on the street, and I'm back to Manhattan. And what happened was I show up for this draft physical because they call you in. I'm 1A, and I go down to Whitehall Street before they blew it up, and I'm going through all the stuff. And there's Arlo Guthrie has
The
this
Group
long,
W bench.
yeah, this long song. And he got felony possession for littering or something, and so he's got what they call the Group W bench. It turns out I'm looking at my papers. There's a big red W on the front of it, and because of the pot bust for a couple of joints, I'm not eligible for the draft. I'm not qualified enough.
Oh my gosh.
My moral character isn't good enough. Maybe I can aim good, but they didn't want me because I was morally defective.
Oh, I tell you, you've got an angel on your shoulder.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
really do. Honest to goodness. But the war, thank God that you didn't have to go, because unfortunately I knew too many people
Oh, yeah.
that didn't come back.
Oh yeah, a couple that came back and weren't quite the same anymore. It was something else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to this day, I don't know why the heck we were there.
Well, that's for another day.
What was the point?
But it always, something that amuses me when I think about the Vietnam War. When we were at Woodstock in '69, we were so out of it. We missed so many groups. We were so screwed up. But the one thing I remember, was when Country Joe and the Fish were playing, and they started out with the Fish chant, which is,
Give me an F.
give me an F. F, give me an I. What's that spell? Fish. And but they didn't use fish. They were saying the F word. Everybody's screaming this F word, and I didn't swear at all. And 300,000 people screaming the F word. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then they went into their anti-war song for, yeah. I'd have you sing it with me now, but
I don't think anybody wants to hear that anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, people looked at the long hair and they figure you're a draft dodger or something, and I didn't even get a chance to dodge a draft. They just didn't want me from the jump. I kind of was a little insulted.